All right, I think I'm in the wrong room. This is supposed to be the Pussycat Lounge. I'm going to show you what I got here for you. Welcome to Vegas. I'm Ward Bell, VP of Technology, it tells me. I know this is what Silverlight's all about. It's about flash and spangle and glam. But if you're in this room, you think that it's about business. And so do I. I mean, it's certainly about Elvis, but it's also, we're here to build line of business applications, and a lot of our clients are really excited about getting it on Silverlight. Now, there's a lot of challenges to building a Silverlight application, and I don't want to minimize them. And I'm not going to talk about all of them, because I'm here to talk about one aspect of it, which is the data story. How do I get my data in the right shape and form, with the right behavior, into my application? So I'm going to show you some UI, but I don't want you to think that I'm here to teach you about UI or show you UI. The UI is there because if I don't know how to show you data without UI. So it seems to me that data access in Silverlight's a pretty much heavy lifting right about now. And it has been to this point because it's N-tier. You can't go direct to the database. You have to get data over the wire, and that poses challenges. Now, officially released so far in ways to do this are a couple of techniques. One of them is WCF services. You just roll your own services. You start writing all those methods. You get your get this, you get your insert that, and you delete that, and you get the more, and then you write 4 or 5 of those. And if you've got 100 business objects, you may have 400 methods. Who knows? It's certainly work. No one of them is hard, but writing a lot of them is a lot to maintain. And so partly addressing that is something called data services, affectionately known by its original code name Astoria. And these are 2 ways to go about it. And I'm going to show you another one called DevForce, which is what we offer. Now, the thing to know about it is that it's real and it's available now. It's real in the sense that we've been in the business of doing this kind of N-tier data movement as objects and the ORM space for 7 years. We've had real customers doing it, and obviously we haven't been in Silverlight for 7 years, but a lot of the same techniques and so forth have moved along. So it's real and it's available now. And it's also pretty easy, pretty quick to create an application that makes use of this data. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it for you in 4 steps. You may decide that there were some sub-steps in there, but I'll call it 4. We're going to create a solution from nothing. We're going to build a model, business object model. We're going to write some queries, and then we're going to show it. And that's what you're going to do. And what I'm going to show you, you will be able to do yourself, pointing at your own database. But before I get there, there's the obligatory 2 architectural slides. So I got to talk about what it means to be N-tier. Here's your database. Now, we're kind of reliant on the entity framework. I hope that some of you have heard of the entity framework. We have chosen to make the entity framework centerpiece of our approach. But unfortunately, you cannot get the data out of the entity framework and get it directly into your Silverlight client because it doesn't travel over the wire or through the cloud. So what we offer is some code that sits on the server side. We'll call it the DevForce server. And on the other side of the wire, we've got an entity manager. You can think of it as a context, something like that, that's going to catch and throw. They're going to catch objects and throw objects back and forth across the air. We'll take care of all the serialization. We'll set up all the WCF. You don't have to do anything. No hands, no tricks. And then you write your UI presentation to make use of the objects that come across. Now, I'm going to be showing you some UI, so I might as well lay out what it is we do there. This is the MVVM, the model view model pattern. Just want you to show it fits in there rather nicely with that. So you got your model with your business objects and the persistent state and the behaviors and all the stuff that it should have. There's your view, your visuals, what you want to see on screen. Traditionally, those things talk directly to each other, but we know that's not a good idea, particularly if you would like to test it, or if you have visions of being able to use your business logic and your UI logic to be able to drive, say, WPF or WinForms or ASP. So it's nice to put something in the middle that really looks a little bit like UI, it understands it, but it doesn't have a commitment to a particular UI, but it has visual state and responds to gestures, and it also manages the model for you. So it stands as a buffer, an isolation layer, if you will. Now, how does the view model is going to have to go get those data. How is it going to do it? Does it talk directly to the entity manager? Well, it could, the entity manager being our thing. But we're going to say, no, we recommend that you put a little layer in there, and you're going to see how I'm going to work with it. We'll just call it a persistent service. It's not an SOA service. It's just a layer in there, an installation layer, so that you can, so that your view model doesn't know anything really about the mechanics of getting things either. Just insulates it there. And it has the interesting side effect that should you, and I know you won't, but should you ever decide that you don't want to continue with DevForce, you can swap out the things be underneath the entity manager, put your own something or other in underneath, and presumably if you've written the rest of the logic right, it keeps on ticking. So I think it's time to do a little surgery. Go out there and look at some code. So let's start with the, well, it's the empty Visual Studio solution. It doesn't get any scarier than that. And so I will begin here with a new project. But fortunately, we're going to offer you some templates to do a lot of the grunt work for you. And we have a very bare, spare one, but I'm going to take you to the one that is sort of a tutorial and gives you, I think of it as a piñata of lots of ideas that you break open. And we'll call it, and I call it the Model Explorer, and we'll call this session Mix. And it grinds away, and this is a standard Visual Studio template, not a T4, nothing spectacular about it. So it's got to grind, grind, grind. Any day. Oh, it looks like it finished. And you may have seen this strategy before, but what we end up with is 2 projects. This makes it very simple. You don't have to end up with 2 projects, but it's simple. We have a web project, which is where that's straight.net, and then we have a Silverlight project up here. So all of our view stuff like that will be there, and we got this one here. I'm going to move ahead now and go out there and get ourselves, we'll build ourselves an ADO.NET entity data model here. And we're going to do this data-driven, so we're going to go out to a database, and we're going to take Northwind EF, which happens to be something that ships with the entity framework. And it goes and looks at the schema. And we could examine all the tables and pick what we like, but we're just in a hurry, so we're going to take everything. Not recommended that you do that, but it's a demo. So the entity framework then goes, figures things out, looks at the schema, and decides these are your classes. It draws a model and so forth, pretty pictures. If you haven't looked at the entity framework, this is not the session in which you will learn about the entity framework, but you get, I hope, the idea. The other thing that you may be interested in is that that's not the only way. Behind the scenes here is some XML. It's always XML under the hood. It's called the EDMX, Entity Data Model XML. But that's not the only way you need to look at it, or you have to look at it. You can use a tool that we provide, and in fact, if you want to use us, you have to use this tool, which gives you another perspective on the XML. And, but it's the same XML that was generated by the ADO entity framework, and we're going to be making changes to that same XML, so we can use either editor. We can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Whichever one floats your boat, that's what you use. You'll notice that it picked up the fact that we have a domain model project, which is on our server, and Silverlight project. And if we look, it takes a somewhat different look at our suggested classes. You notice that they're all plural because that's the way it is in the database. And that doesn't seem like so much fun to me. So we've added a pluralizer in here that will just run through there and turn the classes into singular and the sets into plural, kind of like the way you'd like it. The other thing that we've done is we tie really nicely into the new Silverlight 3 controls, and there's a whole binding strategy there, so we'll put in some binding attributes that help the UI discover how it should bind to your classes. And .NET, the Silverlight 3 actually comes with its own validation attributes and so forth, and we're going to generate some validation attributes for you. And you can mix and match. Turns out we've always had some of our own, so we can mix and match we call them verification, with Silverlight's own validation, so you get the best of both worlds. Let's take a quick look in here at customer. And actually, if I look at the top, you can see that we have this is sort of a grid presentation rather than the chart presentation. And I can go in there, and here's an example of the display name. It's suggested if the UIs are looking and want to know what they should call this thing, company name, and we can, if I can get my mouse to work, we can call this customer, and we should see that show up. Anyway, there's a lot more than you can do here, but I've only got 20 minutes. So anyway, it runs, it's done, and what have we done, they ask? Well, what we have done is we have generated some classes behind the scenes here, and they're all tucked away in this file here. And the other thing that I want you to note that's kind of interesting is we have this file here, and lo and behold, it's the same one there. Okay? It's actually, you see the little shortcut symbol? What that's telling you is that these are really the same file. You're just editing it from whichever perspective you want. And the reason we're doing that is that we want you to be able to develop your entire object model in one place. You fire up the editor, you do what you need to do, one model, one model, one model. If we could, there'd be one assembly for the one model, except that you cannot have the Silverlight DLLs and the .NET DLLs, and we have to have .NET on the server and Silverlight out in the client. So what we're going to do is we're going to compile that file against the different DLLs. But from your perspective, it's one text file. I call that it's lexically one model. Okay, that's nice, and believe it or not, we're actually done in terms of model construction. There's a lot more we can do, and we'll see that. But you can't tell because we've got to show it. So remember I said that we're going to intervene with something called the persistence service, and I've got one here. Come on, show up. By the way, this is a template that you will get, as a power tool, so a power toy, so that you can do this yourself. All right, and you could point this to any database, but of course I'm up here and I pointed it at one that I knew about. So I'm going to throw away the generic entity manager, which is our context, and I'm going to use the strongly typed one. That's step one. Step two, let's write some queries. Well, what do we like to write queries in? We like to write queries in link. Let's write link. Only we're going to write link on the client side. We're not going to write any link on the server side. We're going to write everything on the client side. As a matter of fact, we're done with the server side in some sense. So here's a really simple one, and let me just unveil it. By the way, you're seeing this queries.add. In the UI, you're going to see in a minute that the way this whole thing works is you just make a nice big pile of queries. You want a new query, you write a new query, and there's a little drop down, and you get to say the name of the query, and then I'm going to go fire that query. So it's name, and then write a link query. So this one just gets all the customers, whoop-de-doo. But we have some more here called load more queries, and this shows you the kind of thing, if I can select correctly, and I didn't. We'll try that again. And uncomment. This shows you the kind of queries that you can actually do. So here's a starts with A, pretty simple. Oh, what's this? B from cache only. Yes, one of the things that we offer is a client-side cache. Now that doesn't seem so remarkable, except that here's how it's remarkable. I can run link queries, the same ones that go to the database, I can run against the cache, the local cache. Let me give you an example. I have Nancy DeVolio. If you've ever seen Northwind, you know about Nancy. She's one of my favorite people. She's the first employee in the database, always has been. And you decide that you want to change her name to Sally. Then you say, give me all the names of the employees that begin with S. Well, what do you get back? Would you get Nancy back? Because that's what she used to be called. Or would you get Sally? What do you think they want to get? I think they want to see Sally. Well, what I want to do is I might want to go out to the database, get all of the employees, but I realize, right here, she's Sally, and she should be in the result set. So I should realize that locally she's Sally, and I should return I should return Sally, formerly Nancy, in my result set. That's what it means to be able to run the query simultaneously against the data source and against the cache and merge them together. You write the query as if, I don't care. But we're going to sort of merge the results together. Of course, you have complete control over that. And here what I'm saying is, I just want to be able to run against the cache only. You get to choose, should this query go to the database only, the cache only, a little of both? You're in control. And I can do, obviously I can do linky queries like this. But how about, here's an interesting one. I'm going to do an include. I'm going to ask for customers, and I want to get the orders that go with those customers. And I want it where the company name starts with C. Yeah, that's pretty good. Or how about this one? I want the customers, but I only want those customers that have some order, any order that was shipped to Oregon. Try that. All right. Remember, I'm going over the tiers. I'm not able to sit there. If I was on the server, no big deal. This is standard link. But I'm out there in the Silverlight client. How about this one, which is a projection? I want you to go out to the customers, and I need you to get just the company name. Oh, and would you tell me how many orders they had? And I could do an order and all that other stuff. Now, this is a completely made-up type. I don't have any type that consists of company name and order count, and yet I'll be able to use it. At least we hope I'll be able to use it. I compile. And I get ready to run. It said it was successful. And it's going to give me a little warning saying, hey, you want me to make that, the app config look right? And so, yeah, thank you, DevForce, help me. I still have one of these open, so let me get rid of that one. There's always a glitch. Let's try it again. Now we've got one. I already had a little server, local Cassini going. That'll make your heart stop. Okay, so we always log in because there's built-in security features. We didn't actually write a login manager, so it lets you in, but it reminds you that you can. Goes out and get the customers. Hey, that's great. It's also got a little editor here. Now, this is the new Silverlight 3, bare bones. And this is not the recommended UI, but grid and data form down below, and we're tying into it. And you notice that I said it should have a customer label, and it does. And if I could manage to mouse over this stuff and erase this and tab out, yes, indeed, I get there's validation is built in, so it's picking it up, just like you may have seen in one of the earlier shows. And so I can put it back. There it is, and I can make modifications to it, and now I can save it. And it's saving, and it's saved. That's good. We're actually going to see that in a second, because what I want to do is, I promise you CRUD, there's add, delete. Let's take that down. And in order to teach it about add and delete, I have to tell it, you should know how to add and delete. So I could have just made something up, but what I did, if this ever shows, is I've cheated in here, and I've got a customer object, and it really wasn't included in the compile. So I'm going to set the properties so that instead of the build action being none, it compiles. And all I did is I implemented the iCreatable and iDeletable, which is interfaces I made up. You make up your own. But what it does is it lets the UI say, okay, I now allow you to create and delete this thing, and I even know how to do it. And so when we do that and we run, by the way, again, all this stuff comes to you. You just pick it up, and you can use it to spelunk your way through. I only have 2 minutes left? Whoa. All right. I'm going to fly by that. So here it was. I've got add. I got delete. So there's the new guy. I got that, which I have to fix. Whack. And I'll save it. And there we go. All right. But that's a really ugly UI, so let's get rid of it. And let me show you a couple of the other things I've got, which will also come in the box. This is the Model Explorer Revised Edition. Dum-da-da-dum. And you can see that it looks a little bit better. Logging in, same idea. Come on, baby. Oh, let's see it. All right, there are the customers. It's got some more features, some of the things that you've seen, but you can now do a little more clever things like that. By the way, let's delete that one for future reference. And by the way, I'll save that. And when it comes back, we will go and we'll look at employees, because I want to show you something else. Again, the view model under this is exactly the same. Didn't change the view model at all. All I did was reskin it. All right? So there it is with the form. This is a data form, just re-templated. And all the validation still works. Here's my projection. I forgot to show that to you. All right, customer name and order count. By the way, that returns an anonymous type. In Silverlight, you can't bind to an anonymous type. because it's internal, except that we can. We'll show you how. Here's something else that's kind of interesting. I want to show you the kind of the beginning to the offline story. Actually, there's some. Before I do that, because I'll only show it once, let me just close this down, and I show you, because I'm done with this one. Any day, come on, Visual Studio, you can do it. I want to show you that this is actually running on our server back in California. You notice that up there it says ideablight.com Model Explorer. There it is, running over the wire, actually running over wireless. Same app that you just saw. All right? How about this? Oh, here's an interesting thing. I can actually, I'm allowed, I've opened up the log so I can actually see everything that happened there. So I can see that we just fetched customer like that. Let's go back out there and do that last thing, the customer info as projection. And it got it. And let's go see what the log says. There it is, the anonymous type. So I can actually watch what's going on in the background. It's a really important debugging tool to be able to watch what's going on. And you can, by the way, you can add your own messages to this log as you go. How about this? I did this last night at 3 o'clock in the morning under the influence of a couple of margaritas. I saw this whole thing about how you can launch something offline. How about that? Just a little bit of XML, and I am now running outside of the browser. Completely outside of the browser, and everything still works. All right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to do something really interesting. I'm going to tell you a little story here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I have, there's something called a clear, where I clear everything that I know about. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get the customers in order starting with C. All right, that was as if I had just started over, by the way. And I'm going to get, employees in the US. You notice that all this stuff is disabled while we go? Okay. So I got all this stuff, and I'm going to stick it in isolated storage, to file. I am now going to disconnect, clear, all right? And now when I query, I get nothing, right? I'm doing queries against the cache, but there's nothing. Nothing. All right? But because this is offline, I'm going to bring some stuff in that I just saved to ISO store. And now I've actually got customers. Not all the customers, but all the customers I had. So I'm out in the field trying to talk to my new customer, and I'm trying to take that person's order. So I'm out in the field, and I want to add it. Hi, Mix. All right? Well, I can't save it because I'm out in the field. But what I can do is I can save it to my ISO store. All right? And then I close the application, turn it down. I don't have time to do that, so I'll just simulate it by reconnecting with the rest of the world here. And when I do my query, now I really do get things. That wasn't what I wanted to do. No, pretend that I cleared first, got to get the order right, and I restore from file. And now I find out about my customers. There it is, the one that I had saved while I was offline. I was able to take the customer's order, keep all the stuff while I was offline, shut the application down, come back up and do it. You get it? How's that? Now the cool thing is you can actually try this at home. All right? All this code is yours. It works. It was just as easy as I just showed you. What wasn't easy, by the way, is it took a week to even do the scrubbing of the UI and make it look good like this. And my friend Joe out in the audience here did that, and I'd like to thank Joe for his fine job there. So I don't mean to minimize the challenges, all right, in building a Silverlight app, but you can get off the ground with your data and get going and start working on that painful UI stuff right away. So let me bring it on home here. We saw that you had one model to work on, one model lexically. We saw Silverlink. I call it Silverlink because, you know, I'm wearing the jacket, right? Silverlink. And what it is it's just reinforcing the point that you're writing link in the client. You're not writing it on the server. You can write it on the server, but why do that when you're thinking about what you want on the client? We're tying in all the Silverlight 3 controls. That's why we had the validation. And you saw offline. Now, the problem with a rapid, an RAD tool and all that stuff is everybody thinks it's a toy. But there's a lot more. We've been at this for a while, and this isn't all we do. So, we can support WPF and WinForm and ASP with one model. Same model you just wrote. There are security features all up and down, life cycle events, places to intercept things. There's a scaling story, too. You can load balance the heck out of this thing. It's a stateless server in the middle here. We got all the transaction support you need, including distributed transactions, because you can have two databases in the same model, and if you write, we'll write out to both databases with a distributed transaction. And we have a testing story. The application you just saw has unit tests on it. I can do unit testing on the whole thing without talking to the database. I never have to touch the database. You can't do that with regular EF today, but you can do that with our stuff. Now, I saw some of you at the party last night, and you looked you were going to get into it, and I'm expecting you to go to get really hammered tonight. So I want you to go home on the plane looking like this. I want you to think, time to cut it. Am I 5 over? I'm over. Here's the big news. I want you to call me. I want you to write to me. I want you to look around at all the data stores that are out there, come out and see me, learn more about it, and then please fill in the evaluation form, and I've helped you by telling you all the information you really need to know. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You're a great audience.